your average superhero. But Sana Amanat didn't see why not, and so Ms. Marvel, the first ever female Muslim superhero, was born. It's a human story about adolescence, about wrestling with one's identity and place in the world. As Marvel's director of content and character development, Sana helps bring characters like Ms. Marvel to life. Characters whose stories are bringing new diversity to the comic book universe. So here to talk about it, she's here to talk about it with Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Oh, wow.
Hi, again. I am so excited to have this conversation.
I'm excited.
I was excited to talk to Michelle, but particularly to be with you. Mostly because I have been a comic book fan since I was about 10 years old.
Oh, nice.
And so when I heard that Sana was coming, and they said, "Do you want to do this?" I was like, "Yes." Yes, and I don't tend to be very insistent about events, but this one definitely. So first of all, thank you so much for being here.
I'm excited to be here. I'm not used to having an audience where people are not dressed in costume. This is very professional.
Right.
Nicely done.
Yeah. Looks like you got a lot of comic book fans in here, I think I would say, right?
Comic fans?
Maybe not.
What?
Okay.
Just lie to me, guys.
All right, that's all right.
Yeah, there you go.
That's all right. We'll convert you, though. We'll convert you by the end.
Yes, that's the point.
So one of the things that's interesting to me is, when I was a young person, and I've always been a Marvel person, when I was a young Marvel comic reader, it never, I could not imagine an era where we live now, where you have X-Men movies, Fantastic Four movies, Avengers movies, where it's not, just comics aren't this thing that this particular niche group consumes, or superheroes are not something that this particular niche group consumes. It's actually one of the dominant forces in entertainment right now. Why do you think that's happening now?
Well, I mean, they're amazing. They're awesome. They're so much fun. And they sort of take us on an adventure that is sort of away from our reality. And it's the extreme fantastic, it's the incredible, it's the amazing. And sometimes people need a jolt of that. And particularly so, and I think the reason that our fans love our comics and our movies so much is because there's something very aspirational in superheroes that we all sort of want to be like. And that's really what it comes down to. You sort of whittle away the capes and the tights and the people flying and doing all these amazing powers. It's really about that. It's really about people trying to be the best version of themselves despite the obstacles that are put in front of them. And I think that's really what, that's why I love superhero comics. I think that's why, even little kids and adults, like from all ages, really are drawn towards that kind of story.
You were, I don't know if I'm allowed to, I'm going to go ahead and say this. Let's just say that, we were talking upstairs, and you were saying that there was a survey that came out some years ago, and the age range of the average comic books reader was particularly advanced.
Yes,
so it actually wasn't a kiddie form.
No.
And can you talk about, as you talked about, some of the changes that needed to happen in order to make it, a little bit more friendly to not just the young people, but different types of people, right?
Yeah, I mean, you have to think about it. What I was telling Ta-Nehisi earlier was that, maybe about 5-6 years ago, there's a study done that 25% of the comics audience was over the age of 60, which was insane. That means that 25% of our audience was literally dying, right? So we had to try to figure out exactly. I'm sorry, that was very kind of rude. My mom is 73, and she'll be she's mentally smacking me right now. But that sort of, was a big realization for us, not necessarily in an overt way, but in a way that we wanted to remind people that, listen, there's comics out there, they're fantastic stories, but how do we start being more inclusive? How do we tell stories that are representative of the way the world actually looks, the way the world is, from a story point of view, from a tonal point of view, and we started diversifying the base a little bit. Because fundamentally, if you look at comics in general, at Marvel in particular, everything that we tell is fundamentally a very diverse story. We were talking about earlier how when we fell in love with Peter Parker for the first time, we did not see white. Yeah. We saw what that character represented, right? It was about all of those struggles that he had, the fact that he was a misfit. So fundamentally, that's what the story is. We're just sort of changing up the setting and the dressing up a little bit, and that's what got people more involved in what we're doing.
Please don't be offended by this, but well, I'll set it up like this.
Okay.
People are always surprised when I tell them I read comic books. Are people surprised when they find out that you're a comic books fan?
Oh, 100%. And the fact that I work in the industry is a big thing. And I keep saying I'm a minority of a minority of a minority because I'm a female, Muslim, South Asian comic book editor who lives in New York City. So it's all of the things. Yeah.
And so, why do you think people are surprised?
About me particularly, or in general? The typical image of the fanboy and fangirl is, it's the comic book guy from The Simpsons, right? It's people who are a little bit awkward and who, put their glasses up and are like very particular about continuity and what happened when, and Amazing Spider-Man 182, like Peter Parker did this and Doc Ock did this, and it's very sacred. If you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, comic books was a safe haven for a lot of people who felt like they were misfits, who didn't feel like they fit in, and this was their sort of escape mechanism. You write your comic book, and you could be anyone. You could be just like Peter Parker. You could be just like Captain America. So you have this image of what people look like when they're reading comics, and that's really unfortunate because of the fact that the content is so diverse and out there that really anyone, if they actually get to page 2, will fall in love with it. And I think that's changing very much now in the last few years alone. I mean, there's so many more women reading comics, so many people of color reading comics, and I think that just says so much about the potential of the content and the fact that they're actually digging in and finding what it's all about.
Do you remember the first comic book you bought?
Oh, God, ever? It was probably an Archie comic. Oh, definitely an Archie comic.
Right.
And then Calvin and Hobbes. And then I went really dark and I read The Killing Joke. Which is a very, very dark story.
Very brutal comic, yeah. Not for kids.
Says something about me, yeah.
Right. How old were you when you read The Killing Joke?
God, when did I come out? I was probably like 15, 16.
What did your parents think of you reading comic books?
They were just happy that I was reading. I was a big reader. I was reading novels and everything. I think my parents didn't understand what I was doing for a job until about a year ago, when the New York Times article came out, and my mom was like, "Oh, okay, this is a real job." And I'm like, "Yeah, they pay me for this." And so now she goes to the comic shop every Wednesday and is friends with the store owner, which is really great. And these are mom and pop shops. These are people who've been running the shops for like 20, 30 years, just for the love and the passion, and they're an amazing business. And my mother goes in, and so much of what they make is based on all of those dedicated customers who come in every Wednesday. So my mom's one of them, which is cool. She's up there, yeah.
One of the things I've been thinking about, I mean, in this era where you can see the Avengers, X-Men, etc. in movies. I guess now folks are on TV, Netflix, whatever, and at the same time you can pick up a comic book. Like for me, I find myself still enjoying the medium of the comic book. Even I would say even more so than the actual movies. For instance, as a way of legitimacy, what people often say is, well, such and such should have a movie.
Yes.
You know what I mean? She-Hulk should have a movie. But I find myself often actually enjoying the medium of comic books itself and not
You're
wanting
a purist. Yeah.
I don't know. It's just like I enjoy like the interaction between me and the book, and I don't necessarily want to see some director's interpretation of it. And
well, we can get away with so much more in comic book form that you can't get away with in a movie. And sometimes if you try to transform it, like with Ms. Marvel, the first time she gets her powers, it's really warpy. Like her entire body just starts fluctuating, and it becomes like a rubber band. And that's something that only the artist, like Adrian Alfona, who's the artist, he can only interpret it in a way that looks really beautiful and whimsical and alarming at the same time. And that is the power of comic books. It's the way it's colored. It gives you a very different feeling. You can play a lot more with tone from a visual perspective than you can with movies. And we have an idea, and we can put it on a page in a couple of months, which is really exciting. With film, it's the development process. It's just a lot more.
It's also a special effects budget, right? I mean, you can do all sorts of crazy things.
Our special effects budget is unlimited.
Right.
Pen and paper.
But actually, I mean, that's not a flip point, because I think like it's one of the reasons why I have a son. It's one of the reasons why I started him very early with comic books, because what basically you can see more things. It expands your imagination. by having that interaction in a way that it just costs money for film to do that.
Oh, yeah,
you know?
yeah. And it's great because, at least for kids, it's a great medium to be able to start reading. It brings them into a bookstore, a comic book shop, because of the excitement of characters and the characters themselves. But they start reading at a younger age.
Right,
My nephews I give them comics, and they started reading when they were like 3-4 years old, and that's pretty wonderful.
Right. One of the things that I think that Marvel particularly does a great job doing is constructing a coherent, believable universe. So for those of you who aren't, Marvel readers, obviously there's several, superhero books within this. There's Spider-Man, X-Men, Avengers. I'm trying to do my best to be an interpreter and a diplomat for the comic book world. I don't know how successful I'm being. I'm sorry if this is becoming jargony. But you guys have a way of making sure that all of these people live within the same world. And so what happens in this book over here might affect this book over here. What do we lose? This is very interesting to me because I think like what's happened for reasons of commerce is like if you go to a theater, those folks can't necessarily live in the same universe because of licensing agreements. Do you think we lose anything with that without having, that sort of,
I would say no. I think it makes the universe so much more magical and interesting if you're creating this cohesive space. It's like the world outside, You go in, and other things that are happening. You're affected by what happens downtown in New York, what happens across the world, and that's sort of what we're trying to reflect in the Marvel Universe. And at the end of the day, like, to be able to tell a good story, you have to look at fundamentally what that character is all about and what their struggles are, what their mission is, what they want. And that's what makes it interesting, and that's kind of what we focus on. Like when we were creating Ms. Marvel in particular, everyone was like, "Oh my God, this is the first Muslim superhero! So exciting, amazing! You guys are doing groundbreaking work." And the first question was, "Oh, so are you guys gonna deal with like child marriage and oppression for women, Muslim women?" And I was like, "She's 16 years old and she lives in Jersey City. Like, I hope not. That's not the point. The point is." Who is Kamala Khan at the core? Not the fact that she's a Muslim, not the fact that she's a South Asian. All of that helps sort of dispel the myths around those categories. But fundamentally, who is she and what does she want? And for us, we found out it was about identity. It was about the concept of being given all of these labels from a very, very young age and trying to sort of create your own definition of them. Everyone is telling you who you are and what to believe, and fundamentally, how do you get away from that? You get away from that by actually becoming an adult and choosing for yourself, choosing what you believe, and that's a very difficult thing. And that's really what her struggle is. And then once you get to know that, you're like, oh wait, she happens to be a minority, and like the first Muslim superhero, to have her own series. Oh, that's pretty cool too. But we want to strip away all of that conceptually, all those concepts of race and gender, to get to know who that is. And we do that with every single character. That's the only way you're going to be able to tell a great story, a captivating story that keeps people coming back.
How do you feel about that being? We just had this, this great introduction for you, but it's like it must be like either sentence number 1 or sentence number 2 when people are introduced to you, and they say, created the first, Muslim American superhero to have their own book. How do you feel about that?
It feels pretty awesome. I have to say, like from a very young age, I never thought I was going to be doing this. So
you don't feel boxed in at all?
I don't. Well, yeah. I mean, sometimes I'm like, oh, great. Then I'm never going to be able to do anything else. I'm like, do I have any other good ideas? I hope so. I mean, I think that's a lot of people's struggles. But no, I mean, I think it's really exciting. I think the fact that people responded the way that they have is pretty exhilarating because there is an impact, right? Like I've spoken to a lot of young women and older men and people who are like, you're telling my story. And I needed a story like this for such a long time. I've had mothers come to me actually physically crying and telling me, you don't understand what this means for me. You don't understand what this means for my daughter. So that for me, aside from my career or what I can do, that is the point. Because stories have an impact, and I think superhero stories can have and have been having more of an impact. And that's sort of what is the point for me. It's pretty. I feel pretty lucky.
So for the folks in the room that we have who may have been interested in this conversation, or may didn't come in interested in comic books, but now are, where would you, if somebody said, and I get this from time to time on Twitter or wherever, they say, "Wow, this sounds interesting. Where should I start?"
Ms. Marvel number 1.
Okay.
No, shameless plug.
Okay.
That's a really great entry point. Runaways by Brian K. Vaughan is actually a really great story about young teens on the run. They discover their parents are supervillains. Really, Ultimate Spider-Man, the Miles Morales series that's happening right now is quite fantastic. And for those of you who have children, I would recommend Squirrel Girl that just came out. It's just a great sons, daughters, what have you. Really great all ages book. But we have a lot going on. We have a bunch of ways to get to us. The Marvel app, Marvel Unlimited. Walk into your comic shop, support the retailers. It's a really great world. Once you read one comic book, I think you'll be addicted. And it's also like cool now. I think it's like you can be like an intellectual and also read comics.
Yeah.
Call them graphic novels, so you'll sound a little bit more intellectual.
Well, I just want to underline something you said. It is a really, really great world. I mean that. As a writer, I don't know where I would be without, Marvel particularly. That is not an advertisement. It is literally true. Sana Amanat, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.